Placing 5 circuits into a subpanel is sufficient to pass inspection, given that certain conditions are adhered to. Firstly, the subpanel rating must be rated for at least 15 amps per circuit, totaling 75 amps for the 5 circuits. Secondly, the feed circuit rating, meaning the circuit that feeds the subpanel from the main panel, must be rated for at least the total amperage of the circuits in the subpanel, that is 75 amps. Thirdly, ensure proper circuit protection. Each circuit in the subpanel must have its own circuit breaker or fuse appropriate for the circuit's amperage, which is 15 amps in the provided scenario. Fourthly, grounding is critical. The subpanel must be properly grounded according to the applicable electrical code. Fifthly, accessibility is vital. The subpanel must be easily accessible for both maintenance purposes and inspections. Now let's explore some of the advantages of using a subpanel in this type of situation. Firstly, using a subpanel conserves wire. It eliminates the need to run 5 separate wires all the way back to the main panel. This approach saves on materials, namely wire, and reduces labor costs. Secondly, organization is improved by the use of a subpanel. A subpanel provides a dedicated and organized space for the circuits, making it easier to maintain and troubleshoot any potential issues in the future. Thirdly, it makes future expansion easier. If there is a need to add more circuits in the future, it can be easily done in the subpanel without having to modify the main panel. It is important to be aware that the total amperage of all circuits in the main panel, including the feed to the subpanel, must not exceed the main panel's rating. It is crucial to consult with a licensed electrician to ensure that all electrical work is performed safely and in accordance with the relevant electrical codes. When installing a subpanel, several important considerations must be taken into account. Firstly, the subpanel's physical location should be dry and accessible. Avoid areas prone to moisture or physical damage. Sufficient working space around the subpanel is essential for safe maintenance and future modifications. Secondly, the size of the subpanel matters. Choose a subpanel with enough spaces for the current 5 circuits and any anticipated future expansion. Overcrowding a subpanel can lead to overheating and make troubleshooting difficult. Thirdly, wire sizing is a critical aspect. Ensure the wire size used for the feeder circuit from the main panel to the subpanel is appropriate for the amperage rating of the circuit breaker protecting it. Refer to the National Electrical Code, or NEC, Table 3.10.16 for ampacity ratings based on wire size and insulation type. Undersized wires can overheat and pose a fire hazard. Fourthly, overcurrent protection is essential. Install a properly sized circuit breaker in the main panel to protect the feeder circuit to the subpanel. Also, each individual circuit in the subpanel must have its own appropriately sized circuit breaker or fuse. Fifthly, grounding and bonding are non-negotiable. The subpanel must have a separate grounding and neutral bus bar. The neutral bus bar should be isolated from the subpanel enclosure. Connect the grounding bus bar to the equipment grounding conductor, which runs back to the main panel. The subpanel enclosure itself must also be bonded to the grounding system. Sixthly, wiring practices are important. Use proper wiring techniques, including secure connections, proper wire stripping, and neat cable management. Label each circuit breaker in the subpanel clearly to identify what it controls. Seventhly, local codes are important. Always adhere to local electrical codes and regulations which may differ from the NEC. Obtain necessary permits before starting any electrical work. Eighthly, professional inspection is important. After completing the subpanel installation, have it inspected by a qualified electrical inspector to ensure it meets all safety requirements. Ninthly, load calculations are important. Perform a load calculation to determine the total electrical load on both the main panel and the subpanel. Ensure that neither panel is overloaded. Consider factors such as lighting, appliances, and any other electrical equipment that will be connected to the circuits. Tenthly, documentation is important. Keep a record of all electrical work performed, including wire sizes, circuit breaker ratings, and the date of installation. This documentation will be helpful for future maintenance and troubleshooting. Remember that working with electricity can be dangerous. If you are not comfortable performing electrical work, It is always best to hire a qualified electrician to do the job safely and correctly. They will have the knowledge and experience to ensure that the subpanel installation meets all applicable codes and regulations. Consider the type of loads these 5 circuits will be powering. If they are primarily lighting and general receptacle circuits, a standard subpanel will likely suffice. However, if any of the circuits will be powering heavy loads such as motors or HVAC equipment, additional considerations may be necessary. Motor loads, for example, may require special overcurrent protection and conductor sizing to accommodate the motor's inrush current. HVAC equipment often requires dedicated circuits and may have specific grounding requirements. It is also important to assess the existing capacity of the main electrical panel. The main panel must have sufficient capacity to handle the additional load of the subpanel and the circuits it serves. If the main panel is already near its maximum capacity, it may be necessary to upgrade the main panel before installing the subpanel. This can be a significant expense, but it is essential to ensure the safety and reliability of the electrical system. Before beginning the subpanel installation, carefully plan the layout of the wiring. Determine the best route for the feeder cable from the main panel to the subpanel and ensure that the cable is properly supported and protected along its entire length. Avoid running the cable through areas where it could be damaged or exposed to moisture. When connecting the feeder cable to the main panel, be sure to de-energize the circuit breaker that will be feeding the subpanel. Use a voltage tester to verify that the circuit is dead before proceeding with the wiring. Follow proper wiring techniques to ensure secure and reliable connections. When connecting the feeder cable to the subpanel, again ensure the power is turned off. Connect the wires to the appropriate terminals on the main breaker or lugs in the subpanel. Tighten the terminals securely to prevent loose connections, which can cause overheating and arcing. When wiring the individual circuits in the subpanel, use appropriately sized conductors for the amperage rating of the circuit breaker. Follow the NEC guidelines for conductor ampacity, and be sure to use the correct type of wire for the application. Securely connect the wires to the circuit breakers and to the neutral and grounding bus bars. After completing the wiring, carefully inspect all connections to ensure they are tight and secure. Use a multimeter to verify that the voltage and polarity are correct. Turn on the circuit breaker in the main panel that feeds the subpanel, and then turn on each of the circuit breakers in the subpanel one at a time. Check for any signs of overheating or other problems. If everything appears to be working correctly, label each circuit breaker in the subpanel with a clear and accurate description of what it controls. This will make it easier to troubleshoot any problems in the future. Keep in mind that electrical codes and regulations can vary depending on the location. Be sure to check with a local electrical inspector to ensure that the subpanel installation meets all applicable requirements. A professional electrical inspection can help to identify any potential problems and ensure that the installation is safe and compliant. Using a subpanel can be a convenient and cost-effective way to add additional circuits to an electrical system. However, it is important to follow all safety precautions and to adhere to all applicable codes and regulations. If you are not comfortable performing electrical work, it is always best to hire a qualified electrician to do the job. In some instances, depending on the existing electrical infrastructure and local regulations, there might be alternatives to using a subpanel. One alternative is to replace existing single-pole 15-amp circuit breakers with tandem breakers, also known as double-pole breakers or half-size breakers, assuming the panel is rated to accept them. This allows 2 circuits to be placed in the space of one. However, this approach has limitations. Many older panels are not designed to accept tandem breakers, and even if they are, there may be restrictions on the number of tandem breakers that can be installed. Another alternative is to run new circuits back to the main panel if space and wiring capacity are available. This may involve replacing the main panel with a larger one if the existing panel is full or does not have enough capacity. While this can be a more expensive option, it may be the best solution in some cases. Another thing to consider is arc fault circuit interrupters or size and ground fault circuit interrupters or GFCIs. Depending on code requirements, SI protection might be needed on the new circuits. SI breakers detect electrical arcs, which can be a fire hazard, and trip the circuit to prevent a fire. GFCI protection is typically required for circuits that serve wet locations, such as bathrooms, kitchens, and outdoor areas. GFCI breakers detect ground faults, which can cause electrical shock, and trip the circuit to protect people from harm. Subpanels themselves don't necessarily require FCI or GFCI protection at the subpanel feed, but the branch circuits originating from the subpanel might, depending on their location and application. Always consult the latest version of the NEC and local codes for specific requirements. The type of wiring method used for the feeder circuit to the subpanel also needs consideration. Commonly used wiring methods include non-metallic sheath cable or NM cable, also known as Romex, electrical metallic tubing or EMT conduit, and rigid metal conduit or RMC. NM cable is typically used for residential wiring in dry locations. EMT conduit is a thin-walled metal conduit that is often used for commercial and industrial wiring. RMC is a thick-walled metal conduit that is used for heavy-duty applications where physical protection is required. The choice of wiring method will depend on the specific application and local code requirements. When running conduit, it is important to use the correct fittings and supports. Conduit must be properly secured to walls and ceilings to prevent it from sagging or coming loose. The number of conductors that can be run in a conduit is limited by the conduit fill requirements of the NEC. Overfilling a conduit can cause overheating and damage to the conductors. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous and should only be performed by qualified individuals who are familiar with electrical codes and safety practices. If you are not comfortable performing electrical work, it is always best to hire a licensed electrician to do the job.